Hello everybody, this is Catholic Dad. I wanted to apologize because I'm just getting over septoplasty of my nose here and turbinate reduction, so I've been a little bit scratchy and hoarse and cough and I sneeze and so on and so forth. Please keep that in mind. Today I want to talk about rightful authority and rightful authority with regards to man, woman, and household. And so I want to take you back to the Garden of Eden. Now the Garden of Eden, we all know the story there. So the serpent comes to who? The serpent comes to Eve, and the serpent convinces Eve you can eat the apple even though God forbade it. And so she eats the apple, and now Eve didn't want to be alone. So she turns to her husband, and she tries to get him to also disobey God. Now, Adam has a decision to make at this point in time. Either Adam can follow God's law and not eat the apple and say, listen, we're not going to do this. This is not the way we're supposed to behave. Or he can actually eat the apple, please his wife, and do as she says and take her lead, allow her to be the leader and him to be the follower. And we all know how that turned out. And from that moment on, once Adam ate the apple that Eve presented to him, most men were inclined to not being true leaders, to not grabbing rightful authority, to not essentially taking care of business when they were asked to take care of business, to be too pleasing of their wife, being reckless, so yes dear, whatever you want dear, so on and so forth. You know, in the Garden of Eden, I'm sure, it's probably not in the Bible, but she said, here, you eat the apple, and I'm sure he said, yes dear, right? And so from that moment on, men were too weak and not authority leaders of the family. Most men fall into that category. And then from that moment on, most women fall into the category of being too controlling of the family, of the spouse, and trying to grab authority from the husband and trying to lead everything, right? Taking control of all sorts of situations they shouldn't be taking control of. And so this is essentially the center point of almost every sitcom ever written. You know, if you think about it, that the woman's trying to exert undue influence on the husband's trying to like negotiate without making her mad, and so he always falls, always becomes the weakling, right? You know, and that's the funny part. Everybody giggles, everybody laughs, and everybody knows that it's frustrating and difficult. And why is it funny? Because it's funny because it's true. That's virtually every married couple. And every boyfriend, girlfriend, team, and whatever else. It's the relationship of men and women. But man's not supposed to be that way, and woman's not supposed to be that way either. I mean, even the Bible says that women, you should submit to your husbands, and men, you should love your women like he loves his church. Meaning that when you love your wife like he loves his church, everything you do for her is for the good of her and her children. You're not supposed to be a tyrannical dictator. Now, here's the deal. When exercising rightful authority over a family, you risk, there's one of three positions that you can be in. Number one, you can be too weak. That's where most men fall, and that's where most of society falls in. Number two, you can be tyrannical, right? Meaning you've upped the ante, you've kind of become a stronger leader, but you're not now a leader, but you're now a tyrant, and you're just like, whatever I say goes, there's no conversation, end of conversation. And that one's a little bit harder to deal with, and there are certainly are some tyrannical men out there. And I'll give you a metric, by the way. If a man ever uses physical force on a woman, he's by definition a tyrant. You should never do that. So that's a clear litmus test of have you gone too far? Have you exercised too much authority? Are you now a tyrant over your family? If you do that, men, go away. Nobody needs you. You need to pray. You need to go to a confession, and you need to reform your life. That's what you need to do. But all that being said is, the men on the other side of the fence, they're too weak, they're not leaders, they're like making these crappy decisions for their families all the time. They're allowing essentially the family to dominate them, and they run into financial straits. There's too much excess, so on and so forth. Those people need a prayer. They pray, get the confession, and try to reform their life as well. Because there's a third option, by the way. You can actually exercise rightful authority. You can actually be hard enough where you actually lead the family to a good, bright future. Everybody's spiritually taken care of, but people still love you as a father and husband. That's the hard part, right? So how do you know that you're there? You're not a tyrant. And how do you know you're not too weak? And I was talking to my local priest about this today after Mass. And the conclusion that we arrived at is it's not possible. You can't possibly know if you're exercising perfect rightful authority over the people you're supposed to exert rightful authority over, because there's no such thing as utopia on the planet, right? Much like the communists get it wrong economically, like, the communists, what is it, utopia, communistic utopia. They think you can create heaven on earth. Like, all you need to do is move the jigsaw puzzles around perfectly, and once you master communism, we're going to have this heaven on earth thing, and everybody's going to get along, and so I'm going to be happy, everybody's going to have food, and we're going to have our own modern day Garden of Eden, where nobody needs to work very hard. Everybody has ample enough, and there's no tragedy or suffering in life. That's communism. Has it ever worked? No, and people keep trying it. People keep saying, well, we haven't tried it right yet. Well, let me tell you something. You're never going to get it right? You're never going to be perfect on it. And it will always probably degrade into something horrible and chaotic. That's what's going to happen. But all that being said is, much like the utopianism of the communists, there's utopianism in terms of rightful authority. And I was thinking about this with all the virtues as well, but let's do rightful authority at this point in time. Your wife and you have different temperaments, and there's no way to create one magic formula about the perfect authority of a father figure within a household, because some wives are very sensitive, like too sensitive. A lot of men would say their wives are too sensitive, and if you become an autocratical dictator and tyrant, you can actually harm your wife, emotionally speaking, if you do not do it with love and compassion and so on and so forth in terms of rightful authority. Then there's other wives, like they could take, they could go see battle, right? And they could like get out an animal and whatever else and eat flesh off the bone, or you just go through hardship and tragedy, and they're not bothered by it at all. So so you don't know, and you can never know. You can never know how to exercise rightful authority, but you do need to have a very open, dramatic prayer life, because you need to be constantly reflecting on what you did and what you like, the actions of your day, how you interacted with your family members and your children. Were you a loving father and husband? Did you try to lead your family in a loving way, or were you tyrannical? Did you just slam your fist on the table and say, no, get the heck out of my face? Or did you involve them in the conversation? Because rightful leadership, rightful authority, if you think about it, hopefully everybody arrives at the same conclusion after right reason is utilized. Like, you think about a corporate board. The CEO and the board members make the decisions, but it's the CEO that has to make the argument about the future, the direction of the company, and everybody votes upon it. Same thing as family members. A good father, a good executive of the family, somebody with rightful authority, will have a lot of give and take in their relationship with their spouse and their relationship with their children, and take certain variables that nobody could possibly know about into the equation and factor them in and try to make correct decisions for that family at that point in time. There are some, and I'll give you an example, by the way. You could make some decisions that are completely right for one family and completely wrong for another family. So let's just say somebody gets a headache, and somebody in the family has a narcotic problem. Now, and they say, oh, can we go get some narcotics to take care of this headache or pain? And the husband says, oh yeah, sure, we can do that. In that family, that would be wrong, because you're feeding drug addiction. Okay, but there's other people out there that can genuinely have a horrible headache, but they don't have any substance abuse problems at all. And in that situation, it would probably be okay. And so there you go. Rightful authority, it's difficult to actually exercise true, genuine leadership. You have to know the people you're dealing with, you have to know everybody around you, and you have to make the decisions in a loving way, and hopefully involve everybody in the decision-making process through right reason, so that one day you guys can walk forward and everybody can celebrate your marriage, your relationship, the kids still love you, you're not the autocratic, tyrannical dictator dad, but instead you're somebody that sacrificed his entire life for the good of their mom and the children themselves, and they view you with happiness as you walk through those gates. And so this is Catholic Dad signing off. God bless, Godspeed. Please pray the Rosary daily, get to Mass, and please like or subscribe. Take care.